The thing about camping gear advertisements is that they never show you the moment when everything goes spectacularly wrong. They show you golden sunsets, pristine lakes, and families roasting marshmallows around crackling fires. They don't show you what happens when Mother Nature decides to test every seam, stake, and promise your equipment manufacturer ever made. Sarah Martinez had been seduced by one such advertisement 3 months earlier. The double-decker inflatable tent gleamed like a beacon of innovation on her laptop screen, all sleek curves and impossible promises. Revolutionary dual-level design, the website proclaimed. Weather-resistant materials, sleep-sex comfortably. The testimonials gushed about spaciousness and convenience, accompanied by photos of grinning families gathered in what looked more like a luxury hotel suite than camping accommodation. Now, as she crouched in the lower level of that very tent, listening to wind howl like a freight train overhead, Sarah wondered if those testimonial families had ever experienced anything more challenging than a gentle spring breeze. The storm had arrived without ceremony or warning. One moment, she and her friends had been enjoying a peaceful evening at their campsite in the Cascade Mountains, playing cards by lantern light and debating whether to attempt the sunrise hike they'd planned. The next moment, the temperature had plummeted 20 degrees, and the sky had opened up as if someone had torn a hole in the heavens themselves. "Is it supposed to be swaying like that?" Marcus called from somewhere above her head. He'd claimed the upper level of the tent, along with Jake and Emma, leaving Sarah and her sister Lisa to occupy the ground floor. The decision had seemed logical at the time. The upper level was smaller, and Marcus was the lightest of their group. Now, as the entire structure rocked back and forth like a ship in rough seas, Sarah questioned the wisdom of putting anyone up there at all. The double-decker tent had seemed like such a brilliant solution to their space problem. Their group of 5 had outgrown traditional camping arrangements, but nobody wanted to haul multiple tents on their backpacking adventures. The inflatable design meant it packed down to roughly the size of a large sleeping bag, and the dual-level concept promised to maximize their living space without expanding their footprint. Had been an adventure in itself. The tent came with what the manufacturer optimistically called an intuitive inflation system, which turned out to be a small electric pump powered by a rechargeable battery pack. The process had taken the better part of an hour, with various chambers requiring specific inflation sequences that had to be performed in exact order. Sarah had felt like she was following instructions for defusing a bomb rather than setting up shelter for the night. But when it was finally assembled, the tent had been genuinely impressive. The lower level provided a spacious common area with enough room for all 5 of them to sit comfortably, along with their gear. A built-in airlock system connected to an upper chamber that served as a cozy sleeping loft, accessible by a fabric ladder that felt surprisingly sturdy. The whole structure had seemed solid and well-engineered, a testament to modern camping innovation. The first sign of trouble had been the rain. Not the gentle patter they'd experienced on previous camping trips, but a driving deluge that struck the tent's fabric walls like machine gun fire. The sound was deafening, making conversation impossible without shouting, but the tent held, its waterproof coating, sending rivulets of water streaming down the sides and away from their shelter. Mountain storms, Sarah learned that night, don't build gradually. They arrive like uninvited guests, barging through the door and demanding immediate attention. The wind struck their campsite with enough force to bend trees and send loose equipment flying. Their carefully organized camp kitchen, complete with the portable table and cooking station, disappeared into the darkness within minutes. The tent, for its part, began to behave in ways that definitely hadn't been covered in the setup instructions. The inflatable walls, which had seemed so solid and reassuring during construction, now flexed and bent with each gust of wind. The entire structure would compress on one side as the wind struck, then spring back with a violent motion that sent anyone inside tumbling across the floor. "I think I'm getting seasick," Lisa groaned from her sleeping bag. She'd gone pale green in the LED lantern light, and Sarah couldn't blame her. The constant motion was nauseating, like being inside a balloon that someone was repeatedly squeezing and releasing. Above them, the upper-level occupants were having their own struggles. The smaller chamber, which had felt cozy and intimate during setup, now seemed like a liability. Every movement of the tent was amplified at that height, creating a sensation that Marcus later described as like being inside a washing machine during the spin cycle. Maybe we should deflate the upper level, Emma called down through the fabric floor that separated the two chambers. Reduce the wind resistance. It was a logical suggestion, but implementing it proved nearly impossible. The storm made any movement outside the tent dangerous, and the inflation system's controls were housed in an external panel that was now being pelted by horizontal rain. Sarah made one valiant attempt to reach the controls, managing to get the tent's front door partially unzipped before a gust of wind nearly tore it from her hands and sent a spray of icy water across the interior. Forget it, she gasped, wrestling. The door closed again. We're committed now. And so they waited, 5 friends trapped inside their high-tech shelter as nature tested every engineering decision the tent's designers had ever made. The storm showed no signs of abating. If anything, it seemed to be growing stronger, each gust of wind more violent than the last. The tent's behavior became increasingly erratic as the night wore on. Sometimes it would compress suddenly, the inflatable walls folding inward and reducing their living space to a fraction of its normal size. Other times, it would expand beyond its normal dimensions, the fabric stretching tight as drumheads before snapping back with a sound like a cannon shot. The worst moments came when the wind would catch the tent at just the right angle, lifting the entire structure partially off the ground. The first time this happened, Sarah felt her stomach drop as the floor beneath her seemed to disappear. For a terrifying instant, she was certain they were about to become airborne. 5 campers and their shelter swept away into the stormy night like something out of the Wizard of Oz. But the tent's anchoring system held. The manufacturer had included heavy-duty stakes and guy lines designed specifically for the unique stresses of an inflatable structure, and whoever had engineered them clearly knew their business. No matter how violently the tent bucked and swayed, it remained tethered to the earth. As the hours passed, a strange camaraderie developed among the group. They were all experiencing the same terrifying, exhilarating, utterly absurd situation, and there was nothing to do but ride it out together. Jake started providing play-by-play commentary of the tent's movements, treating it like a sporting event. And there's a beautiful compression on the eastern wall, folks. Really spectacular form on that one. Marcus began rating each gust of wind on a scale of 1 to 10, calling out scores like an Olympic judge. That's definitely a 7.5. Good height, excellent duration, but the landing was a little rough. Even Lisa, despite her motion sickness, joined in the gallows humor. I always wanted to go sailing, she said during one particularly violent episode. I just thought there would be more water involved. The storm finally began to weaken sometime round 3 in the morning. The intervals between major gusts grew longer, and the tent's wild gyrations gradually settled into a gentler, swaying motion. By dawn, the wind had died to a whisper, and the rain had stopped entirely. When they finally emerged from their shelter, the devastation outside was remarkable. Trees had been stripped of leaves and smaller branches. Their camp furniture was scattered across the meadow, some pieces wedged impossibly high in the surrounding trees. A large pine had fallen across the trail they'd used to reach their campsite, effectively trapping them until a trail crew could clear it, but the tent had survived. Battered and thoroughly tested, but intact. As they deflated and packed it away, Sarah found herself developing a grudging respect for the manufacturer's engineering team. The double-decker design, which had seemed like such a gimmick, had actually performed admirably under conditions that would have destroyed many conventional tents. So, Marcus said, as they finished breaking camp, same time next year? Sarah looked at the tent bag, now packed and ready for transport. Despite everything they'd endured, she realized she was already planning their next adventure. The storm had been terrifying, uncomfortable, and thoroughly miserable. It had also been the most exciting camping experience of her life. Absolutely, she replied. But maybe we should check the weather forecast first. The double-decker inflatable tent now sits in Sarah's garage, waiting for its next deployment. She's used it several times since that stormy night in the Cascades, always with fond memories of the evening when camping gear marketing met reality, and somehow both emerged victorious. The tent proved its worth in the most dramatic way possible. And Sarah's group learned that sometimes the best camping stories come from the nights when everything goes wrong.